Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Bat Around. I'm your host, Paul Valley. He is our sunglassed man, Ryan Blake, our new married man, Ryan Blake. Ryan, good morning. Congratulations to you. How are you today?
Good morning, Paul. Thank you. I'm just enjoying the beach, man. I'm having some caramel popcorn for breakfast, as one does. Rocking the new shades. Hawaiian shirt, of course, for the Orioles. I know we're coming off of a loss, but it was a heck of a game last night. And I'm just happy to be back doing this show with you, Paul. I've been off for a couple weeks now, and it's good to be here talking Orioles once again.
You've been breaking up a little bit. I don't know if people can see that on the feed or if it's just on my end. But that was, I heard I'm having fun at the beach, got the new sunglasses. I know we're coming off of a tough loss, but it was a heck of a game. And I'm glad to be back doing the show, but it was very, very broken up. Let's see if Ryan has a little bit better of a connection now. You were fine to start. We had this issue with Luke when he tried to fill in for you like a month ago, but yeah. I think we'll be okay. I think it may have just been things getting starting out slowly. Before we get into anything from last night, and boy, was there a lot to get into from last night. I want to remind everybody today's show is brought to you by Royal Farms, and to no one's surprise around here, USA Today has named Royal Farms the best gas station for food in America. Take advantage of a 12-piece Rofo chicken mix for just $20, all varieties of chicken tender subs for just $7, and breakfast burritos for just $3.99. Plus, if you upgrade your Royal Farms rewards account to include Rofo Pay, you'll save 15 cents per gallon on gas through June 30th. Stop by your neighborhood Rofo today and find out why Royal Farms is truly number one. Do you have like a TV on or something, man?
No, but I think I had the volume too loud, so I just turned it down so that there's no echo from you in the back.
Gotcha. Okay. No viewers on the show right now. Usually we have at least 8 by now. Nobody's watching. I think everybody is maybe still sleeping or too upset to get on after that game last night. And before we... is there any way to not bury the lead one way or the other?
No.
There's Kyle Bradish, there's Jackson Holiday, there's what happened with that game. Before we get into like super sad stuff, let's talk about what happened with that game a little bit. Not the essence of the game, but what it was an all-time great, right? It was an instant classic last night. And then I almost said the F-bomb. An effing rain delay comes for an hour and 11 minutes, crushes all momentum that the Orioles had. And you go to bed after that game not even feeling like it was an instant classic anymore because that rain delay just kind of like it crushed every bit of, oh my God, this is the best game of the year. Like, I don't know about you, but like when that game came back on, the feeling wasn't the same for me.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. It was, the game goes to commercial after, the review. First of all, you have the play at the plate to keep the Phillies to 1 run in the top of the inning, which was a spectacular throw. And then bottom half, the wild pitch. And then it immediately, we could see on TV the ball hits the backstop and, it's coming straight back to the plate.
Mm-hmm.
Mullins might be dead in the water here. And then great slide to avoid the tag. The play is reviewed. He's called safe. Santander comes up. You've got a runner on third, the winning run on third. Flies out pretty deep to right center field, and then goes to commercial. And you're thinking like you said, instant classic. Like this is one of the best games I've watched. I had serious FOMO that I wasn't at the stadium. I almost thought like then the rain starts, and it kind of puts a little bit of a damper on that. And I actually had a thought. I wonder if I left Ocean City right now, could I make it to the stadium by the time this rainstorm's over? Luckily, I didn't end up actually trying, but it comes back and, it still feels like, obviously it's still a tie game in the 11th inning, but it didn't have the same feel of momentum as it did with all the fans engaged as it did before the rain started. So, unfortunate that it had to go to a break, unfortunate that the outcome wasn't what we wanted, but it was still a heck of a game.
Oh, it was a hell of a baseball game. It was a ton of fun. I posted last night, I'm having an anxiety attack during a regular season game in June. What's wrong with me? It's like, yes, these games matter. They absolutely matter. The Orioles are going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
They're going to go to the playoffs. These 3 games in June aren't going to have a huge impact on that fact. But it's the fact that, there's been a lot of back and forth between Phillies fans and Orioles fans about which team is better. Certainly, what the Orioles have done this month, what they've done in their last 22 games, I think they're the best team in baseball. I do. I think they're the best team in baseball, and that's with a bunch of injuries, namely to starting pitching, like only to starting pitching and a couple of relievers. It's been frustrating, but this team has weathered the storm even still with all these injuries going on.
Yeah.
And so for them to lose that game last night was super frustrating, especially with the way that they lost it, because Brandon Hyde never intentionally walks guys. He will pitch to them to a fault. We've seen them. I learned to talk. I've seen them do it with Vladdy Jr. specifically a number of times where he should be put on base in extra innings or with the go-ahead run on base, and they don't do it. And it comes back to bite them more often than not. Last night, he walked Bryce Harper, and that is 100% the correct move. It's 100% the correct. He's Bryce Harper. I get it. Jacob Webb is better against lefties. Bryce Harper has looked not great in that game, but he's Bryce Harper. If you don't know what that dude can do and you don't know how clutch that guy is at this point in his career, I don't know what to tell you. Walking Bryce Harper is 100% the move last night. What isn't the move is to immediately throw a 94 mile an hour fastball middle up to Alec Bohm when that's exactly what he's looking for in that situation. You just walk Bryce Harper to get to him. He's got 2 hits on the game. He's been having a phenomenal season to the last couple of weeks. He is 100% looking to ambush your pitcher. And you throw him exactly what he's looking for, and he smashes the ball in the left center field, which, look, hindsight can be 20/20. I'm not going to sit here and say that I even thought for a second, Brandon Hyde should put Colton Cowser in as a defensive replacement for Austin Hayes. That thought never crossed my mind. It never crossed anybody's mind. But I have no doubts Colton Cowser catches that baseball last night. Austin Hayes did not catch the ball. And where it went, and Austin Hayes even said it, the route was good. My glove got to the ball, and I just didn't catch it. I have got to catch that. He's like, I lost sleep over that. I'm going to lose sleep over this. Because if you look at the replay, the ball doesn't miss his outstretched glove. The ball goes between him and his glove, which means he just didn't have his glove in the right spot. That ball's got to be caught. That ball's got to be caught. And they end up scoring 2 runs on that hit. Webb doesn't give up anything else. They get out of it. And then, the story of the game, 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. They left 10 men on base. You watched Adley, Cowser, and O'Hearn on 3-2 counts take strike 3 on the outer edge of the plate, which all 3 pitches were strikes. All that location and even further out has been a strike all night. And that pitch, in that situation, you cannot leave the bat on the shoulder. You absolutely cannot leave the bat on the shoulder when you have a 1-run or a 2-run ball game. You've got the tying run on third base in Adley's case and the go-ahead run on second base and less than 2 outs. Even with 2 outs, you cannot leave your bat on the shoulder on that pitch. You've got to do what you can to flick that ball foul. You go to the top of the 9th after that at bat with Rutschman. You go to the next inning, and it's Alec Bohm at the plate, and he's got 2 strikes, and Kimbrel puts a pitch on the outer edge of the plate. And Bohm is looking to stay alive. What does he do? He sticks the bat out, he flicks the ball, and he flicks it for a base hit to right field. When I saw that play happen, I thought to myself, that's all Adley had to do. You won't hear me complain about Adley Rutschman much, if ever. In that situation, I think he was being too passive, looking to walk instead of get a base hit. And I know that Adley's got a phenomenal eye. You've got to swing at that pitch. If you miss it, we can live with that. Just like his next at bat when he had 2 guys on and it's a fastball up on 3-2. That pitch is probably called a ball. It's too close to not swing, and he missed it. But you can live with it. You can't fault him for swinging at it.
For sure. Yeah. And look, I'm not going to blame Adley because he's Adley, right?
I'm not blaming. I'm
with you. I'm with you completely. I just think by that point in the game, you have to have adjusted to what the umpire is giving you. And we had seen from the first inning what kind of strike zone we were going to be working with. The pitcher was going to get balls, a couple inches low. They were going to get balls a couple inches away. It was happening all game. And whether or not the pitch is actually a strike, which they were in all three instances, you have to know what umpire you're dealing with by that point in the game. And they were still, these guys have great eyes. And, under normal circumstances, they might get that call. But we knew it wasn't happening last night. And to act like, why am I not getting this call when that's how the entire game's been going? You got to get your bat off the shoulder. I'm with you there.
Absolutely. And with guys like Adley and O'Hearn, they're not big strikeout guys.
No.
They're not big strikeout guys. So, and they know the strike zone. But like you said, we're in the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th inning now. You've got to know the strike zone. The strike zone is what the umpire dictates that it is. There's no set strike zone. We have general ideas, but every strike zone is different for every umpire, and it's been egregious the last few years. You know this by now. Colton Cowser strikes out a lot. He just does. He's averaging more than one strikeout per game. That's just what he does. He'll barrel things up. He'll hit the ball hard, but he's going to strike out a lot. But the situation is you've got to try and stay alive in that at bat. If you walk, cool. But if that pitch is called a strike all night, you've got to fight there. You've got to do something to put the bat on the ball and at least trickle it foul so that you live to see another pitch. You can't justify standing. Now, look, if that pitch is 4 feet off the plate and the Angel Hernandez is back there and it's called a strike, okay, it's too close to take. And people are like, oh, no, that was a ball. You can't blame Adley. He's got a great eye. No, you can. And again, we're not placing blame on Adley. Adley's not the reason that the Orioles lost that game last night.
Right, right.
Austin Hayes. No, I'm just kidding. But you've got to take the bat off the shoulder there. Yeah. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of this game. However, what we got to talk about is Kyle Bradish. Kyle Bradish last night, he gives up a leadoff homer to Kyle Schwarber. First home run he's allowed all year. I didn't realize that's the first home run he'd allowed all year. Yeah. Then he gives up a home. Who did he give? Oh, to the catcher. Marchand. Is that his name?
Rafael Marchand? I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Marchand. His first hit of the year, his first home run. I think it was only his 5th ever professional home run between minor leagues and the majors. Mm-hmm. He hits that home run off Bradish. The only 2 home runs he's given up all year. After giving up that home run to
Can I interrupt real quick? I might be nitpicking here. Am I the only one who feels like Santander could have caught that ball?
I said that last night. I said
he slowed up on it and then it barely scraped over the top of the fence.
He slowed up on that ball like it was 15 rows deep. And when I saw where it landed literally on the top front edge of the wall and rolled over. I saw that, and look, maybe he was 20 feet away and had no shot of getting there. But to me, it looked like he cut off his route like, oh, that ball's out of here, and then it hits the top of the fence. We've seen him catch balls like that all year.
It looked like either that or he was expecting it to hit off the wall and was kind of shifting to his left a little bit to try to play it off the wall. It was really weird. And look, I'm not saying I'm catching that ball. I'm not saying you're catching that ball. I'm not saying any of us are catching
Ryan,
that
ball.
I
would have caught that ball.
Well, maybe. I'm just saying it looked like he had more of a shot than he let on. And I could be wrong. Could have been a camera angle thing. But I don't know, man. I think if Cowser's out and right, he's jumping up for that ball.
And maybe Santander got a bad jump. Maybe. Who knows?
I'm not going to fault the guy. He threw out a crucial run at the plate. He hit a homer. I'm not faulting him at all. I just think on that particular play, it looked like there was more of a shot to make a play than he let on.
And in that at bat in extra innings, he missed sending us home by that much. Yeah. I mean, he barreled that ball up. He just hit it on the line right at the center fielder. I'm not faulting Santander for that game last night. Lord knows he was a hero. Keegan Aiken was the best I've ever seen him last night.
Yeah. What's that about? Why?
9 up. It was exactly what the Orioles needed. And
Yeah.
the reason it was exactly what the Orioles needed is because Kyle Bradish at 5 innings pitched and 74 pitches, he had only allowed 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk. Kyle Bradish came out of the game. And we saw, I think it was in the 3rd inning. I tweeted that it was the 2nd inning, but I believe it was the 3rd inning. He threw a pitch and as soon as he threw that pitch, he walked off the mound towards the dugout and whipped his arm like something was bothering him with his elbow. The fact that neither Brandon Hyde nor Brian Ebel came sprinting out of the dugout when that happened, I mean, it was very demonstrative. The fact that neither of them came out of the dugout at that point blew my mind. Like Palmer said something. I noticed it. You noticed it. Everybody paying attention noticed it. He flexed that elbow very demonstratively and continued to pitch. I didn't see him flex it again after that. People claim they saw him flex it more than that. He comes out after the 5th inning citing elbow soreness to Brandon Hyde. They're doing more tests. It is, and in that 5th inning, that the velocity. I mean, he threw the hardest pitch of his career to Bryce Harper, 99 miles an hour, 98.6 miles per hour.
Yeah.
On that strikeout in the first at bat. No, second at bat. He was sitting 96, 97 the entire outing. And then in that 5th inning, he was hitting 93, 94. And then he complains of elbow soreness. I think, Ryan, the Orioles just lost their 3rd starter to Tommy John surgery. I don't think that this is good news at all. I think that if his season's not done, it's a miracle. You know, when I saw him flex that elbow in the 3rd inning, my first reaction was, I'm not going to not worry about this the rest of the game. Every pitch that he threw from there on out, it was heart palpitations because Kyle Bradish is that dude. Like that dude's a dude. He is, he's up there with Corbin Burns and Grayson Rodriguez as the 3rd ace on this staff. He's finished 4th in Cy Young voting last year, and he's been better this year. Losing Kyle Bradish, you cannot replace him. You cannot replace him. And now you're looking at a rotation where Dean Kramer coming back. I like Kramer. He ain't Bradish. Cade Povich ain't Bradish yet. And Albert Suarez is Albert Suarez. This rotation is going from a strength to they need some help pretty quickly if he's out for the year. And I have no reason to think that he's not.
Yeah, they've been able to bridge the gap. But, how long is Cole Irvin going to be pitching like this? How long is Suarez going to be pitching like this? It's really hard to predict. Is Grayson going to have, a little bit of a slump like he did last year? I don't think he will, but you never know. Look, Bradish has been spectacular. This is one of those things where, we hear about the elbow soreness at the beginning of spring training. And the thought is, the team is like, we're just going to rest him and he'll be all right. And immediately it's like, all right, well, you kind of just want to get the surgery now if he's going to need it. And then, get him back sooner in 2025. Now you're in a position where he has Tommy John surgery now. You're probably not seeing him until 2026.
Correct.
And there was kind of a feeling like every time Bradish is on the mound this year since he got healthy. And yes, I understand that the PRP injections have a pretty good track record of success with the grade 1 sprains. But you kind of had a feeling all year Bradish's elbow could explode at any second, right? Mm-hmm. Now, we saw him, do the little flex last night. And, it was immediate concern. However, he does that fairly regularly to adjust his sleeve because he always wears a sleeve on his throwing arm, typically. And he was still pumping 97 after that. Mm-hmm. I believe his next 2 pitches were both at 97. And so there was a part of me that was like, okay, maybe it's not, maybe it's not so bad. He was just fixing his arm, whatever. And then I look back at his game logs and I see that one of the starts in St. Louis, he was pulled after 5 innings and 74 pitches. And a pretty similar line. He wasn't struggling. They
that was a rain delay.
Oh, that's right. Well, now I feel like an idiot.
No, don't feel like an
Yeah,
idiot, man. Yeah.
that was the rain delay. They pulled him early. But I'm thinking, maybe it's they're just managing his workload a little bit. This was a scheduled shortened start, and then we get the quote after the game. Hyde says Bradish told him he had elbow soreness, and it's just your heart sinks immediately because it's never a good thing, especially a guy who's been battling that injury this season. It sucks, man. It sucks. You can't replace Kyle Bradish, like you said. Fourth in Cy Young last year. He's been even better this year. 2 outings where he's been absolutely untouchable. And even more where he's been dominant. So it's tough to see. You really hope it's just a rest kind of thing, but it's so hard to be any bit of optimistic about Bradish and an elbow.
Yeah, it's hard to feel, especially when you're watching as, you've seen Felix Bautista had the Tommy John surgery. Then Tyler Wells and John Means, Danny Coulombe, who is your best reliever. Bar none, he's your best reliever. He throws 30 pitches in an outing. He strikes out the side in his second inning. And then 2 days later, he goes on the IL with elbow inflammation, and now it's been nothing but bad news for those pitchers who have had the injuries. And now you're getting it again with Kyle Bradish. And just to add injury to insult, Jackson Holliday goes on the minor league IL with elbow inflammation. When it rains, it pours, and that's why we had a rain delay last night because of the woes going on with the O's woes. Regarding Jackson Holliday, Elias said it's just barking. It's nothing further. He just needs to rest a few weeks. Zach and I said on the show last week, Ryan, that I don't think we see Holliday back in the majors this year anyway. He's still just 20 years old. He's hit 256 with 46 strikeouts in 40 games since returning to AAA. Look, that's not terrible, especially for a 20-year-old, but it's not enough to get him back to the majors. Like, for me, even if Jackson Holliday needed to have Tommy John surgery, the recovery time for a position player rather than a pitcher, a lot shorter. Jackson Holliday could be ready for spring training next year as far as hitting, and then maybe be back, playing the infield by midseason, if not sooner. So, but they said that it's not that he doesn't need Tommy John surgery. The arm's just sore and he needs to rest it a little bit. He's 20 years old. And again, I don't think he was coming back to the major leagues anyway this year. Based on the defense that Mateo has been playing, he's been putting the bat on the ball a lot more this year than he did last year. Kobe Mayo is, he's back and he's raking. He's doing exactly what they need him to do to get back to being on the cusp of his big league debut. I think he gets a call, or Norby again, before it was going to be Holliday anyway. Your thoughts on Jackson Holliday? What's your level of concern there?
Yeah, I'm not too concerned. They were talking about wanting to get him a little bit of rest anyway, and this is a good opportunity to kind of do that if he's only going to miss a few weeks. Elias said during the broadcast he was on with Kevin and Jim last night, and he said that these kind of things happen over the course of the year. It's not always an IL thing. Sometimes it's just a couple days off, or you play through it and it eventually subsides. But with a guy like Holliday, there's, like you said, based on the major league roster, no need to rush him back at this point, and find and maybe give him a little bit of a reset. He hasn't seemed to have been himself. He's had hot streaks since going back to Norfolk, but his full body of work hasn't quite been what we expect. So no, I don't think it's a major concern. Obviously we hope it doesn't turn into something bigger, but I do expect to see him back in just a few weeks. I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. I genuinely do think it's kind of he was, his elbow was yelling at him a little bit. We're going to rest him for a couple weeks, maybe get his mind right a little bit. I'm really hoping that's the case. And I don't really have any reason to believe that it's not, but right. We'll see in a couple weeks if there's a timeline on his return.
Like I said, the concern level is non-existent for me with Jackson Holliday. No matter what happens with him, he's still so young. There's no concern for me, regardless of what happens. Do I want him to have a serious elbow injury? Absolutely not. But if he does, it's not like he's not going to come back a year from now and be playing every day again anyway. It's just a minor hiccup in his career if it's the worst case scenario.
Right.
If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free, confidential services. Getting into this game last night, we knew it was going to be a pitcher's duel. This was the one game in this series, Ryan, that I was actually concerned about. Do I think that the Orioles can win the next 2 games? Absolutely. Do I think that they could get swept? Absolutely. These are 2 heavyweights going punch for punch, blow for blow. That game last night, until that rain delay, was absolutely epic. It was edge of your seat baseball, one of the best games of the year by both sides, just dueling it out. We knew it was going to be a pitcher's duel. Kyle Bradish, 5 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 Ks. He did allow the 2 home runs. Ranger Suarez. And look, I thought Ranger Suarez was gettable last night. He looked wild to me. He walked a couple of guys early, gave up the 6 hits, 6 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 6 Ks. Instant classic. And then perhaps the hero of the entire series, we just talked about him, was Keegan Aiken. What Keegan Aiken did when Bradish had to exit early, 3 perfect innings. That is huge for a team that has 1 off day in 43 days. And is their bullpen has the potential to be taxed with your starter leaving the game early. He comes in and makes it so it was as if they only had it was as if Kyle Bradish threw 7 innings, essentially, last night. Keegan Aiken, 3 perfect innings, the best I think he's ever looked for the Orioles at any point, doing the job for them. How huge is that for this series, for this team, especially when you consider they only have 1 off day the entire month?
Yeah, it was massive. We look at this bullpen and they've been used a lot. We see guys like Webb and Cano pitching seemingly every other day. Danny Coulomb used to be a guy you could do that with, but he's now on the shelf with an elbow injury. And there's been a lot of discourse around Keegan Aiken lately about, how much he has struggled. And he just gave up a game-tying 2-run homer to Matt Olson the other night. And he's looked completely hittable. He's looked like a liability for several weeks now. And then he comes out last night and just absolutely dominates. And it's massive, man. I mean, they've got the off day coming up on Monday, but it's their only one this month and their last one until July. And so you need an outing like that to bridge the gap and, save your arms. Granted, they ended up throwing Webb and Cano and Perez anyway because the game went 11 innings. And
Kimbrel.
But you can't overstate how important Keegan Aiken's outing was to the Orioles last night. Good to see from him. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come. But it's always fun when you get a performance like that from an unsuspecting source. Like, I'm sure the Phillies kind of feel the same way about Marchand hitting the home run. It's not the guy you expect to produce, but when it happens, it's a nice little surprise.
Oh, absolutely. And then, the difference in the game last night is really just the Orioles not being aggressive enough, which is crazy because they're super aggressive, right? But on 3-2 counts, borderline pitches with guys on base, your best hitters at the plate, not swinging at pitches that are close, that cost them the game. Dylan Atkinson, who filled in for you a couple of weeks ago, does a great job on the show. Good friend of both of ours. He said, and I give more credit to Hoffman for a perfect pitch in that situation. Heavy dose of splitters all at bat. Typically lives top of the zone with his fastball. To paint in that spot is just nasty. Showed why he's been one of the best relievers in the game this year. No, you're absolutely right. The pitch was filthy, and sometimes the pitch is just better than the hitter at that particular moment. And I get that. It's easy to coach from the sidelines, right? It's easy for me to sit here and say you've got to flick that ball foul. In Ryan O'Hearn's case, I think it's a little bit more egregious because there's not a win there if it is called a ball because it just makes it count 2-2 instead of 1-2. With Kalzer and Adley, if it's called a ball, it's a walk, right? But you're not up there to walk. You're up there to drive in the runs, and it's too crucial of a situation, and that pitch is too close. If it's 6 inches outside, it's 6 inches outside. It's on the black. The pitch is a strike. And in Kalzer's case, half the baseball was over the white of the plate. You've got to swing there and put the ball in play. But again, I've batted in against pitchers nowhere close to as good as these guys and been frozen on a fastball on the outer edge. So I know that it's difficult. You're major leaguers, right? Like that's why you're in the major leagues. And like they're human too. It's tough for me because I'm not going to sit there and say, you know, Adley's the reason they lost that game last night, and how could he not swing at that pitch? You've got to be bigger than the moment in that moment, and you've got to be able to at least foul that ball off. But we're not going to beat a dead horse here. But Dylan makes a great point that Hoffman put a perfect pitch there in that situation. Adit Mahmood, he says this, and I actually agree with him. Some fans wouldn't like it, but Verlander is one of the better fits for this team at this moment, if available. He has the vet experience to help the younger guys develop and postseason experience. Look, if the Astros decide that they're out, like they're below 500, they're not leading their division right now. They can get back into it. It's still early enough that they can get back into it. They get a hot week, that division's gettable. Like it's not like the Mariners are 20 games over. They're like 5 games over 500 leading the division. Every team's underperforming in that division. But if the Astros fall further back from the pack and we're getting close to that deadline, I think Verlander is a perfect fit for this team. I absolutely do. If you're going to replace Bradish, that's the guy you want to replace him with. You know, or maybe you make a trade with the Marlins for Luzardo and Tanner Scott. I don't know what it's going to take to do all that, but there's guys to be had. Verlander was somebody I thought about a couple of weeks ago. Even without Bradish's injury or potential injury, I think that the Orioles needed to add another starter because I don't think you can look at Cade Povich as being that guy right now. Maybe he will be one day, and he was great in his last outing, but he's a rookie who's made 2 starts. And then Albert Suarez is a 35-year-old journeyman who hasn't pitched in the majors since 2017, and he's been getting good results, but recently he's been putting a lot of guys on base and throwing a lot of pitches. I think that they absolutely need another starting pitcher, and I think Suarez is better served for the Orioles coming out of the bullpen. He was fantastic coming out of the bullpen. Dean Kramer coming back. He's making a rehab start tomorrow for Norfolk. But I do think that the Orioles need to add another starter, regardless of what the determination is with Bradish.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we've already seen John Means go down for the year. Tyler Wells down for the year. Already, you know, without Felix Bautista. Who knows what the timeline is on Danny Coulomb. You got to have more arms. You always have to have more arms. Even if you've got a 6-man rotation, you have to have more guys ready to go in that event. And look, maybe Chase McDermott gets some run this year. I don't know. Maybe someone like Justin Armbruster makes his way. I don't know. Look, they have guys. They have bodies, right? But are any of these bodies going to replace a Kyle Bradish? No. Mm-mm. You have to go out and acquire somebody who is a proven commodity. And, yeah, I mean, Adit makes a good point. Justin Verlander would fit beautifully over here. He'd be fantastic, just what the doctor ordered. And you probably don't have to give up a ton for a guy who's, 41, 42 years old now. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a great point, and maybe he's the guy. But in any event, you know, even if John Means was healthy and Tyler Wells was healthy and Kyle Bradish was healthy, you still kind of want to go out and acquire a new fresh arm, right? Like, because you never know how it's going to play out. And you said it was Suarez. He could be a ticking time bomb. We don't know. Cole Irvin, we saw last year, was not the guy he is right now. Who knows if he's going to revert back to that?
And this past start looked very similar to beginning of the season, Cole Irvin.
Yeah. So at any point, any of these guys could pitch themselves out of a rotation spot. And who's going to come in and replace them? It's not going to be somebody better if you're going from within the organization. So, yeah, you gotta go out and start talking to people.
Speaking of which, I understood going to a 6-man rotation when you had Burns, Grayson, Bradish, Means, Irvin, and Kramer. I get that because you have 6 guys who are legitimate starting pitchers who you want taking the ball for you, and you need a 6-man rotation. Why are we doing a 6-man rotation now? I don't understand that. Because it's like Grayson, Burns, and Bradish are all going to get the ball regardless. And yeah, maybe you're trying to keep their arms a little bit fresher, but you're doing it at the expense of the bullpen during a stretch where you have 1 day off in a month and a half. I personally don't understand that. Like, send Suarez Like, keep K. Povich in the rotation. That's what he does. Suarez showed how good he was coming out of the bullpen this year. Move Suarez back to the bullpen. Why do we need a 6-man rotation right now when you have two of those guys don't need to be in the rotation? I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd value having an extra arm in the bullpen. I mean, with this string of consecutive days without a day off, you got to have as many arms in that bullpen as you can. And yeah, I'm with you. I don't have much to add. It's kind of dumbfounding to me too. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what they're going for.
And see, and I look at that, and I see Suarez pitched on Monday against the Braves. He's probably due to throw. Was it Monday? No, that was Corbin Burns against the Rays. He threw on Tuesday against the Braves. Friday, maybe he's due to throw a bullpen. Maybe not. Maybe like he threw the bullpen 2 days ago, which is probably accurate. But you've got a guy, like when you're in the extra innings, maybe you don't need to completely tax your bullpen by going, Aiken, followed by Cano, followed by Kimbrel, followed by Webb. Maybe you can bring into extra innings a guy like Povich or a guy like Suarez who would be throwing their bullpen day anyway and use them in that situation, and you can keep your bullpen a little bit fresher. Now you're looking at, you just used 4 guys. Aiken did that on one day's rest. So he's not available maybe for the rest of the series. Cano might not be available today. Webb probably isn't available today. Kimbrel, we know if the Orioles have a lead in the ninth, it'd be interesting to see if he comes in, but they're trying to, keep him as fresh as possible. Having a 6-man rotation, I think it's already starting to rear its ugly head, especially with what we're seeing with what happened last night. To me, I just can't understand the 6-man rotation. Something else I can't understand that happened in the game last night. We saw this back in 2022. Do you remember when the Orioles were in Boston? And it was a short 2-game series, and you had Nick Vespi come in to face – the Orioles were up by a run. There's 2 guys on base. Vespi comes in, the lefty, to face Eric Hosmer, the lefty, and he immediately gives up a 2-run triple to Hosmer, a ball that was absolutely smashed. And when you looked at it, Hosmer had severe reverse splits, hit like 320 against left-handed pitching and like 200 against right-handed pitching. Well, that happened again last night, where you have Kyle Schwarber at the plate. He's hitting 320 against left-handed pitching, and he's hitting 199 against right-handed pitching. And Hyde takes out Cano in favor of
Perez.
CNL Perez. And Perez immediately gives up an RBI single that results in the final out of the inning because Tony Taylor throws the guy out at the plate, keeps the game within reach for the Orioles, ended up tying it. But maybe the Orioles win that game if he sticks with Cano, or I have no problem with him taking Cano out, who was having his struggles trying to find the plate last night, in favor of Webb, who gets lefties out at a very high clip this year. Maybe that's a situation where you bring Webb in and not Perez. I know that Hyde likes to match up, but I think I've said this before, one of my biggest faults with Brandon Hyde is that he overmatches up. And in that situation, you're bringing in a lefty to face a guy who has incredible reverse splits this year against left-handed pitching. I don't know if you knew that, but what are your thoughts on bringing in Perez to face Schwarber in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, Cano had just walked Marchand, the 9-hitter, which you never want to see. And I feel like that happens. It happens a lot with this team. I feel like we have our struggles.
No, he didn't walk Marchand. He struck him out. He walked.
Right.
He walked. He walked Pache.
That's right. Yeah, he walked Pache to get to Marchand. You're right. Yeah, no, I did know that about Schwarber's reverse splits, and it's a tale as old as time with this team, and with Brandon Hyde. He loves the favorable matchups on paper, even if the paper is telling him something different than what the matchups actually say. It's it's frustrating because he does this to a fault, and we see it with, like, the biggest example for me is, and it hasn't happened much this year because he hasn't been playing well, but Ramon Arias getting starts against left-handed pitching when his whole career he's hit right-handed pitching better. But because he's a righty, they want him in there against lefties. It's things like that happen consistently. Kyle Stowers has a track record of hitting lefties better in the minors. Granted, you're not facing the quality of left-handed pitching in the minors that you're going to face in the majors, but he's got like 10 career at-bats now against lefties. And the first one, when Hyde finally let him hit against the lefty last year, was against Matt Strahm, who's in this Phillies bullpen. And what did Stowers do? He took him into the bullpen at Fenway Park. It's been a consistent theme, and we've seen it with bullpen moves as well, that he doesn't care what the numbers say. He cares what the handedness says. And maybe that's an organizational philosophy. Maybe it's something about, splits don't mean anything until you have a certain sample size, right? I understand that argument too. But at some point, you've got to have a feel for the game and have a feel for, what situations you're putting your guys in where they're at a disadvantage. And when you bring in Cionel Perez to face Kyle Schwarber, who has been hitting left-handed pitching very well this year, you're putting your guy at a disadvantage. And it's as simple as that. And it continues to happen.
Yeah, it continues to happen. It can be mind-numbing at times. I've been outspoken about it. I'm not here to bash Brandon Hyde all day. All in all, last night's game was fantastic. It was wildly exciting. It was edge of your seat baseball the entire night. The mood of this show has been like extremely somber. There hasn't been a high level of energy, and the reason behind that isn't because the Orioles lost last night. For me, it's 100% because I think Kyle Bradish is going to need Tommy John surgery. And looking at that, and looking at what looked like your I almost call your fiance, your wife was you're on her computer. So I'm guessing.
I'm on my phone, but I've got the notes on her computer.
On the notes, her name popped up under Glenn Clark Radio. And I was like, oh, she's got something to say.
I think I clicked in by mistake. Yeah, my fault.
No, but it's 100% because I'm worried about Kyle Bradish. And before we move on to anything else, I know we've got a soft toss segment coming up here in a second. We know the Orioles have to make a couple of trades, right? Like, their bullpen's been very good, but there's been some chinks in the armor, and namely the back end, and not closing out all the games that they should have closed out this year. So we know that they have to go get a reliever. We know they have to go get another starter. We also know that you don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction to things and make yourself look desperate. When is the time right? Can the Orioles afford to wait essentially another 6 weeks to make a move? Or is this something, or maybe even closer to 7 weeks, or is this something where, no, they need to get something done now? They need to go out and acquire some players. When do we hit that point where it's no longer an act of desperation, it's an act of necessity?
That's a very good question. I think it's already an act. It's already a necessity. You're not going to see Mike Elias panic and go out and overpay for somebody. It's simply not going to happen. Do they need to address it sooner than later? I don't think so, man. And I'm going to get into this a little bit. It kind of plays into my soft toss segment, but I think, even if the team goes on a little bit of, if they play 500 ball for a 6 week stretch, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. So no, I don't think you need to panic buy right now. But I do think, you're absolutely on the phone with teams and saying, what's it going to take for this guy, but you let the market dictate when you're going to make that move, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's what Elias will do. He's too smart to overpay and give up, he's not going to give up a Mayo and a Norby and a Povich for, a half decent starter.
For sure.
He's not going to let the league dictate that kind of move.
And look, let somebody posted, and somebody posted last night, these injuries, it just makes me think that Mike Elias is going to go out and trade two of Mayo, Kerstad, and Basayo. And I know this guy personally. He's married to my cousin. So I've been calling him out a lot, like not intentionally calling him out, but he's just been posting stuff that I just don't agree with, and I say that I don't agree with it. I'm not an asshole to him. Am I allowed to say that? I'm not a jerk to him, but I felt bad, so I DM'd him, and I was like, "Look, man, I don't mean to call you out like this, but Mike Elias isn't going to nuke the farm system just because Kyle Bradish got hurt. Like that's not going to happen. If any of those three gets traded, I think it's going to be Hess and Kerstad, but I don't think he's trading any of those guys. And certainly not going to trade two of the three of them. Like Basayo and Mayo have big futures in Baltimore, unless he's not going anywhere. Basayo, I can see being traded because you could get a lot back for him. But look, like you said, the Orioles can play 500 baseball until the deadline. There's 7.5 games up on the second wild card team. Like there's 7.5 on the wild card team, and then you look at the teams that they're fending off. Kansas City, they're 40-31. The Orioles went 4-2 against them this year. Minnesota, they're 38-32. Did the Orioles play them 6 times or just the 3 times? They swept Minnesota.
They swept them. I don't know if they played them a second. I don't think they came here yet, did they?
I can't remember, but I know that they swept Minnesota. And then you have Boston at 35-35. I'm gonna knock on wood just to be safe, but nobody's catching the Orioles. They're gonna make the playoffs, whether they win the division or become a wild card. And this is gonna lead into your soft toss segment. Whether they win the division to become a wild card is irrelevant. I mean, when they won the division last year, they got 5 days off and they got swept in the playoffs. I almost would rather them be a wild card so that if they were playing good baseball at the end of the season, they can keep going, But nobody's going to catch them to the point where they're not going to make the playoffs this year. I'm not concerned about that. So I think that you're right. If they play 500 ball until the deadline, get some revamp this roster a little bit, and then they can play the last 2 months of the season just killing everybody, that makes for still a 95-win team, in my opinion. That said,
and 95 wins easily gets you into the playoffs.
Easily. It doesn't win your division, but it easily gets you into the playoffs. With that said, Soft Toss with Ryan Blake is brought to you by Glenn Clark Radio. If you missed anything from Glenn Clark Radio this week, including conversations with Buck Showalter, Chase McDermott, Brad Brock, and Carroll County's own Olympic gold medal winning wrestler Kyle Snyder, you can find it all in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature today at PressBoxOnline.com. Ryan, what you got for us?
Yeah, there's been a lot of scoreboard watching in.
Oh, did I call it sounding off by accident?
Did you? I don't know.
Soft toss. So. It's soft toss. I may have called it sounding off, but it's soft toss. Sorry.
No worries. So even thinking back into May, but especially now in June, there's been a lot of scoreboard watching. I've seen too many people who are too worried about what the Yankees are doing right now. And we talked on the show before the season, before the regular season started, about how we didn't really view the Yankees as a serious threat. I've kind of done a 180 on that. I think they're a really good team. I think they absolutely could, start to show their age by the end of it, which they did a couple years ago after an historic start. But they look really good right now. In any event, since the Orioles were swept in St. Louis, they're 16-6. They were 16-4 before the last couple games. They've lost their last two. They're 16-6 since being swept in St. Louis. The Yankees in that same time frame are 16-5, which means they have gained a half game on the Orioles. The Orioles, despite winning 16 of their last 22, have lost a half game in the divisional standings. Why should we care? That's my question. In 2023, the Orioles were trailing the Rays for a good chunk of the season. They finally caught them in July. The Orioles ended up winning 101 games to the Rays 99. That gave the Orioles the top overall seed. With the top overall seed comes a first-round bye in this new playoff format, where you're waiting for the other teams. The wild card round is a 3-game series now across the board. So you're going to have a week off if you get a top 2 seed in your league, right? Mm-hmm. Last year, there were 3 teams, Paul, that won 100 games each. The 3 of those teams combined for 1 win in the divisional series. The Dodgers, the Braves, and the Orioles combined for 1 win in the playoffs last year, despite being far and away the 3 best teams in the slate. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question, Paul, is why should we care? what the Yankees are doing right now when we can just enjoy what the Orioles are doing. I don't have the energy to sit here and watch the Orioles win a game 9-2, and it's going to damper my mood because the Yankees had a 6-run first inning against a team that we're not controlling.
Mm-hmm.
Why does that matter? We can control what the Yankees do when we face the Yankees, which will happen this week. So obviously we want them to lose this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have the energy to look at an Orioles team that's playing so well and be bothered by another team playing a little better. Who cares? Who
Right.
cares? It's all going to even out in the end. And like you said, Paul, before this segment, if the Orioles end up with a wild card, it might be better for them. It might be better for them in this playoff format. Now, I am not saying I hope the Orioles lose out on the division to the Yankees. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. But if that's the case, if the Orioles continue to play well against the Yankees, but the Yankees are beating up on everybody else, that's not a poor reflection on us. It's a good reflection on them. Let us do our thing. The Orioles are a really good team. Enjoy it. They'll catch the Yankees eventually. Maybe they won't. If they don't, who cares? We're back. Orioles baseball is back, and it's fun. And I'm rambling now, but that's my point.
No, it's an extremely fair point. And the reason people want the Orioles to win the division is because you want to win the division. You know, like every year the goal is to win the division, right? And guarantee that spot in the playoffs. And it's the Yankees. And I totally understand that. But we need to take off that hat for a second. And we need to put on the hat of logic. And the logic is it's June. The Orioles didn't catch the Rays until mid-July last year. Like, they didn't take over first place for good until mid-July. It's exactly mid-June. It's June 15th. And the Orioles are 3.5 games back. I'm pretty sure they were like 5 games back at this point last year, the Rays. And they ended up winning the division. And then they got swept in the playoffs because they had 5 days off. Football, that bye week, because your body gets so beat up, you need it. You need it, right? And even then, people say, I don't want the bye. I don't want the bye. Baseball is 100% a game of momentum. It is 100% a game of momentum. And if you saw it last night, the Orioles had that momentum. They had everything going for them to win that ball game. And then as soon as they tie the game, we go to commercial, we come back, the heavens opened up, it's pouring down rain, hour and 11-minute rain delay. All the juice was squeezed out of that orange before that rain delay, because of that rain delay. The momentum was gone. Same thing happened last year from the end of the season to the start of the division series. It was too many days off. Do I want the Orioles to win the division? Absolutely. Am I going to be butthurt about it if they don't? No, because they're still going to the playoffs, and maybe they can keep some strong momentum and get into that division, get into the division series, get into the ALCS, and then get into the World Series. You look at the teams that were in the World Series last year, and forgive me if I'm wrong, the Astros didn't win the division last year, did they? No, I'm sorry, not the Astros, the Rangers. They didn't win the division last year, did they?
No, the Rangers, I think, won 88 games. Mm-hmm. And the D-backs, I think, won 83.
Yeah, the D-backs, they backed into the playoffs. At one point in August, I looked, and the D-backs were 8 games under 500. Yeah. And then the fact that and then I remember doing a show the last weekend of the season and looking at the Saints being like, oh my God, all the D-backs need to do is not die. And they're getting into the playoffs. It was ridiculous. The two teams, let me pull this up here. See more. Yeah, the Rangers, they won 90 games, but they lost out on the division to the Astros because of the head-to-head. The Diamondbacks won 84 games. They were 16 games behind the division-winning Dodgers. They were the 3 seed in the playoffs. I mean, not the 3 seed. They were the 6 seed in the playoffs. And they managed to make it all the way to the World Series. Orioles, number 2 overall seed. They had the best record in the American League, and they didn't win a game. So winning the division, do I want them to? Yes. Am I going to care if they don't? Abso-friggin-lutely not. Get to the playoffs. That's all that matters. And if you get to the playoffs and you get to carry that momentum and not have a long off period, even better.
Yeah. I mean, screw the Yankees always, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But I'm not going to get worked up because the Royals aren't helping us out by winning games against the Yankees. I don't care, man. And I cared last year. When we were chasing the Rays, I was scoreboard watching like crazy. but it was the first time the Orioles were legitimately good in so long. And then we saw what happened in the playoffs, getting bounced after having that layoff. I don't care as much this year. I mean, I care as much about the team winning and making it to the World Series, but I don't care about scoreboard watching in June the way I did last year when we were, finally good for the first time. Now it's just obviously want to win the division, but just get to the dance. And the Orioles are, I think, at least 10 games up from being out of a playoff spot. So
yeah, for sure. Now, before we get into anything else, I do want to point out a couple of things that, like, people were complaining about the offense last night. The offense went 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. They left 10 men on base. And be like, oh, this has been a problem all year. They're home run or nothing. They can't hit with runners in scoring position. The Orioles in the month of June are top three in the majors. Top three in the American League in every major offensive category except on base percentage. They, for the season, are hitting 267 with runners in scoring position, which is 6th in the American League and 9th in baseball. And they have the best batting average of runners in scoring position since the start of 2023. We let these knee-jerk reactions become facts in our minds. The Orioles lost to a good team last night who had the best pitcher in baseball on the mound. Ranger Suarez is really freaking good. And that Phillies bullpen is really freaking good. So, like, the fact that the Orioles lost that game 5-3, the fact that it was 2-2 through 9 innings does not surprise me in the least. That was the game that I was the most concerned with in this series because it was Ranger Suarez against Kyle Bradish. And it wasn't because it was Kyle Bradish and Ranger Suarez. It was Ranger Suarez is that much better than just about everybody else that he goes up against. And so the Orioles, they're going to have to score 3 runs off of him, and that's just not something that he does. He just doesn't give up more than 2 runs in the start. He's really, really good. So, like, let's what's that?
To run into him the day after facing Ronaldo Lopez, who has also seemingly inexplicably, like, he and Lucas Giolito have had very similar career paths and then very similar results where they're statistically like the worst starting pitcher in baseball. And then suddenly something clicks and they're good. Like, but to face Ronaldo Lopez and Ranger Suarez, both of whom are easy all-star selections this year on back-to-back nights, that's a tough task for this team.
Absolutely. Look, I expect the Orioles offense to bounce back in a big way today. They're going up against Taijuan Walker and his 5.40 ERA today. And then you've got Grayson Rodriguez, who is your number 2 ace on the staff. He's going today, and he's been pitching really, really well. And somebody's like, well, it depends which Grayson we get. If we get the good Grayson, I feel confident. If we get the bad, we've gotten the bad Grayson exactly twice this year. So, like, let's pump the brakes on that. Like I know people think I have knee-jerk reactions. My reactions are to flaws that I've seen on the team all year that rear their ugly head when they were God bless you, causing the Orioles to lose games that they shouldn't lose. People acting like the Orioles are like this middling team, like they have like the 3rd best record in baseball. Yeah. And the other 2 best records are playing one now, and the other one is in their division. So, and the Orioles are like dominating their division. I think the Orioles win the division because all you have to, like, they're 17-6 against the AL East, and they're 3-1 against the Yankees. You win the season series with the Yankees, you play that well against the American League East, at the end of the year, you're going to win the division. It's going to happen. That's all that I'm concerned about. We are running way behind. I want to remind you, today's show is brought to you by the newest Press Box print issue. Coming this Monday, a brand new print edition of Press Box. On the cover, Maryland Governor Wes Moore sits down with Press Box to discuss a sports topic significant to his administration, including the stadium and grounds lease for the Orioles, the future of horse racing in the state, and much more. Also, this is our annual travel issue with information about sports tourism opportunities throughout the state that you and your family can take advantage of this summer. You can find the new Press Box all throughout the region, including at 60 Royal Farm stores, and read it all starting Monday at PressBoxOnline.com. AL East wrap-up. Alex Verdugo homered, doubled, and drove in 3, and Luis Gil allowed 1 run over 5 innings as the Red Sox became the latest team to cower in the shadow of the evil empire. Yankees win 5-1. Austin Riley had 3 hits and 3 RBIs, including a 2-run homer, and Marcell Ozuna added a 3-run shot of his own to back the resurgent Chris Sale, who allowed 2 runs in 7 innings to pick up his 9th win as the Braves won their 2nd straight after a 5-game losing streak, 7-3 over the last place Rays. And finally, Will Brennan homered and doubled. The Cleveland bullpen allowed 1 base runner in 4 scoreless frames, and Emmanuel Clase picked up his AL-leading 21st save to lead the Guardians over the Blue Jays 3-1. In today's game, Grayson Rodriguez will be taking the mound for the Orioles this afternoon with first pitch slated for 4:05 p.m. Grayson is 7-2 with a 3.27 ERA after taking a perfect game into the 6th inning on Ryan's wedding day before leaving with a final line of 2 runs and 2 hits over 5 2/3 innings with 1 walk and 6 strikeouts. Grayson has never faced the Phillies in his career. For the Phillies, they'll counter with right-handed pitcher Taijuan Walker. Walker is 3-1 with a 5.40 ERA and a 1.45 WHIP. In his last start, Walker had the exact same pitching line as Grayson Rodriguez. 5 2/3 innings pitched, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. For his career, Walker has faced the Orioles 9 times, all starts, and is 4-1 with a 2.54 ERA. He last faced the Orioles on July 25th of 2023, allowing 2 runs on 6 hits in 5 2/3 innings of a Phillies 4-3 victory, though he did not factor in the decision. As we know, Ryan, the lineup does not come out during our show because the Orioles always play at 4:05 on Saturdays. What do we think the lineup's going to look like? My guess is that it's going to look like this. I left the line in from last week, so ignore that line. But my lineup is for this week. Leading off, playing shortstop, Gunnar Henderson. Batting second and catching, Adley Rutschman. Batting third, playing right field, Ryan O'Hearn. Batting fourth to first base, Ryan Mountcastle. Batting fifth and DHing, Anthony Santander. Batting sixth and playing left field, Colton Cowser. Batting seventh at second base, Jordan Westberg. Batting eighth and playing center field, Cedric Mullins. And batting ninth at third base, Ramon Arias. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that checks out. I could see today being a day that Kyle Stowers gets a start over Cowser or over Mullins, one or the other. Just a gut feeling. Today might be one of those days. Stowers missed, 5 days he was out with a sore wrist. So I could see them giving him some playing time tonight.
He did get to start 2 days ago, and he hit a 3-run homer. It was the Orioles only scoring. And you don't really see him start 2 games out of 3, like ever. That's why that's the only reason. And you also don't really see Colton Cowser get 2 straight days off. And even though he played last night, it was a pinch hitting appearance for him. He didn't start, and there's no way he's not starting 2 games in a row. And Mullins,
I think it's more likely if Stowers does start, it's over Mullins, I would think.
But I don't even think that's going to happen. I'm not just trying to completely contradict you or be a contrarian to you. It's just Mullins' bat has been coming around. He had that big slide. They love his defense. They love his defense in center field. Hyde's going to run him until it's proven that he can't. Especially after this little hot streak that Mullins has been on. That's because I was thinking about Stowers. That's why I didn't put him in the lineup. I don't think he's playing today.
Yeah, that's certainly fair. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see him on the bench.
And I have O'Hearn in right field because I think that they want to give Santander as much rest as possible during this long stretch with very minimal days off. But yeah. All right, what's on tap? After today's game, the Orioles conclude the series with the Phillies tomorrow afternoon with first pitch slated for 1:35 p.m. Corbin Burns gets the ball Sunday for the Orioles, looking to build off of his 3 straight 7-inning performances. The Phillies will counter with Zach Wheeler in a matchup of Cy Young hopefuls. The Orioles then get their lone day off of the month on Monday before heading to New York for a critical 3-game series with the Yankees before heading to Houston to take on the Astros next weekend. Any fear of the Astros, who, by the way, just released Jose Abreu? Yeah,
they're the Astros. They've been to 7 straight division series or AL championship series. Yeah, there's going to be a fear of the Astros until they're eliminated. They are. It's hard to explain their struggles. I mean, I'll be honest. I haven't watched a ton of them. I haven't looked at a ton of the stats. Kyle Tucker is having an MVP season, or was before he went on the injured list.
We're talking about guys that are that dude. He's that dude. Kyle Tucker. I would love him in Baltimore
for sure. Framber Valdez has been fine, but not great. but not bad enough to, be the cause of their struggles. Justin Verlander's been good. Yordan Alvarez has been pretty fine as far as I know. Same with Jose Altuve. Bregman's heating up. So, they're still a really good, scary team as far as I'm concerned. But I'm excited to hopefully, knock them a little further back in their division when we face them next weekend.
Yeah, it's I'm looking at their roster right now, and Altuve's hitting 298, Jeremy Pena's hitting 288, Bregman at 240. He was way down there for a while. Look, Alex Bregman, I think when his career started, he was like the player that everybody hyped him to be, but I don't think he's been that guy for them for a really long time.
Yes.
He was a rookie in 2016. He had 49 games, 201 at bats. He had 264 with a 791 OPS. And then within 2 years after that, 2018, he finished top 5 in MVP, 31 homers, 51 doubles, 103 RBIs. And then the next year, he finished second in MVP, 41 homers, 112 RBI, and he led the majors in walks with 119. He has not sniffed that production since then. He's been good driving in runs, but he hasn't been the same player in about 5 years, in my opinion. And so, like, with Alex Bregman, like, he gets a lot of hype for what he was supposed to be and what he used to be rather than what he is right now, in my opinion. Yeah. Verlander's been good, not great. The ERA is 3.95. I still think a guy like that helps this team because he's a veteran with that kind of experience. And the Astros, they're always going to scare me, even though the Orioles have kind of handled them the last couple of seasons. They're always going to scare me because you remember in 2020, they were 29-31. They snuck into the playoffs, and then they made it to Game 7 of the ALCS. Like, they almost went back to the World Series and were below 500 that year. So yeah, the Astros always scare me. I think that the Orioles are the better team, and they should. I just saw a comment that's stupid from a guy who I really like. I'll get to it. But they're always going to scare me because they're the Astros and they have that pedigree, and all they have to do is get in and watch out. They're the Houston Astros.
Yeah.
Today's show is brought to you by Toyota, your local Toyota dealer. While high school sports season has come to an end for this year, County Sports Zone will be providing great high school sports content all summer long. For the latest in coaching changes, football previews, and more, check out countysports.zone. Proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. All right, Ryan. So I went back and forth on this a little bit last night when I was doing Take to Rake. And I was like, well, if Zach wins, does it count for Ryan? Should it count for Ryan? Should we do a guest? Are we going to have enough guests for it to count? And then I decided, no, it counts for you because he's the guest who replaced you. If I have a guest replace me on the show, they'll count for me, although I don't foresee that happening. It could. I might just be like, you know what? I want a Saturday off. Zach, will you fill in for me? It could. Sure. Maybe I'll do it to make things fair, right? However, Take the Rake. Zach co-hosted in your stead last week. He took Jordan Westburg. I took Tony Taters. Westburg went 7 for 24 this past week with 3 doubles, 2 triples, an RBI, 0 walks, but he did get hit by a pitch twice, including last night, and 6 Ks, slashing 292, 346, 708 with a 1054 OPS for the week. Tony Taters, 6 for 29, 2 home runs, both solo shots, 2 RBI for the week, 2 walks, 8 Ks. He slashed 207, 258, 448, 706. Zach gets the win. Jordan Westburg had the better week all the way around. He had 7 hits and 5 of them were for extra bases. So, Ryan, you take the lead as Ryan and Ryan's guest now have 3 wins to my 2, and there's been 2 ties. We actually have back-to-back weeks with a tie while you've been gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because you and I took Jordan Westburg and you took Colton Cowser. And they both hit like 200. Neither one of them raked. And then Dylan and I took Adley and Gunnar, and they had almost identical weeks last week. And like I think Gunnar had a higher on base percentage and slugging percentage, but Adley had a higher batting average and drove in more runs, something along those lines. They both had equal wins in different categories for the week, so that was a tie also. You finally get off the schneid of ties and you take the lead here, 3-2-2 in our Take to Rake series, which means after my long-windedness that you get to pick first. Who you got?
Yeah, give me Gunnar Henderson. Give me Gunnar to have a big series in New York. Give Aaron Judge a run for his money as the best player in that series. I want everything about Gunnar at Yankee Stadium. The short porch, the atmosphere that's going to be, the competition with Judge for the home run lead. Give me Gunnar to have a big series.
I am taking Adley Rutschman. What happened with him last night? I think Adley, first of all, he's just so likable and he just does everything so well, right? He's head and shoulders above every other catcher in the game of baseball right now, in my opinion. But I also know from watching Adley these last 3 seasons that I think he probably puts a lot of that loss last night on his shoulders. I think that he looks at his last 2 at-bats with 2 guys on base in each at-bat, including the tying and go-ahead runs in his at-bat in the 7th inning. I think he looks at it and says, man, I let my team down. I think he's coming out gangbusters against the rest of this series, against the Yankees. I think Adley Rutschman is going to go off this week. I'm looking for 9 hits this coming week from Adley Rutschman. Give me Adley for Take to Rake.
I like it.
All right. And look, that's not me blaming Adley. Like, Adley Rutschman has been, like, he has been exactly what everybody thought Matt Wieters was going to be. And Matt Wieters was very, very good. He was a 3-time Gold Glover. He was a 4-time All-Star. Matt Wieters was very, very good. Adley Rutschman, there was all the hype around him, and he's exceeded it, if that's possible. He has been so damn good since the moment he stepped on into an Orioles uniform. I love Adley. I'm not blaming him for anything, but I know that the type of player he is, he's probably stewing inside about what happened last night. Anyway, boy, am I long-winded. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
All right, let's get to some fan interaction here. Randall Fracase says, good morning, guys. Good morning, Randall. He also says, Ryan, congratulations on getting married.
Thank you, Randall.
Beautiful wedding, by the way. I got to be honest, I could hear very little during the ceremony. There was something going on with the mics, but it was, but the weather was like, the sun went behind the trees just in time for the start of your ceremony. And the breeze was phenomenal. And it was a beautiful setting. The food during the cocktail hour, the food in general. I mean, who gets a filet mignon and a salmon filet with delicious mashed potatoes for dinner? The drinks, everything was awesome, dude. It was just such a great wedding, and we had such an amazing time. We didn't get to say goodbye to you. You and I had just had an interaction. We just I just said hello to your beautiful bride, Megan. And then you guys were taking these big pictures, and we had to get out there to go get the baby, so we didn't get to say goodbye. So sorry for that, but thank you for including us. It was an awesome day.
No worries, man. It's hard to be able to have conversations with 150 people, but glad you made it. We couldn't have asked for anything better. We got so many compliments. We had such a great time. Everybody loved the food. The weather was fantastic. I will say, if Grayson had carried that perfect game a little further than he did, the wedding would have started late.
Well, let's be honest. The wedding did start late. The wedding started about 15 minutes late because Ryan was watching Adley Rutschman hit a grand slam in the 8th inning.
Well, hang on. We duped you a little bit. The wedding was actually supposed to start at 4:30. We just put 4 on the invitation so people wouldn't show up late. So the wedding actually started early.
Oh,
just by a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not gonna lie. Laura and I on the way down, we were talking about man, I hope that like when you go to a wedding, you want to be there for the ceremony, right? But it's also especially if you're outside on a hot day, it's I hope that this is a 15-minute ceremony.
Yeah.
Let's get inside into the AC and get our drink and eat on. And when we got your itinerary for the ceremony, and we saw the first prayer, this person speaking, the homily, the exchanging of the vows, this, that, and the other, and we saw that it was from 4 to 5. Laura was like, oh my God, it's going to be an hour-long ceremony. She's like, I am so hungry. It was,
Oh.
but it was beautiful. It was awesome. I just thought it was super funny that like if we had seen 4:30 to 5, like even if she was hungry, she would have like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
am I being insulting? I'm not trying to be.
No,
I just
not at
thought it
all.
was
And
funny.
I do think like we fit the wedding into like a half-hour period, and then you got to go inside to bacon wrapped scallops and
The pork
and
belly.
brie.
Oh my God. And I'm not gonna lie, I had like 6 bacon wrapped scallops. I had like 6 of them. Okay. And the pork belly, I only got one. And the guy never came back. Like the same people kept coming back with like the brie roll-ups and the bacon wrapped scallops and all that. The guy with the pork belly, it was all great. That pork belly was like next tier. He only came by once, and I was so upset. I was like, I need more pork belly. It wasn't disappointing. It was me being totally selfish. You know,
Well,
I left that wedding with my pants unzipped. I was so stuffed. It was ridiculous.
Glad you enjoyed it, man.
Well, thank you. No, it was a great time. Back on track. Randall says, "Wish O's had Harper's bat." I mean, yeah, I think every team wishes they had Bryce Harper's bat, but we have Gunner's bat, and we have O'Hearn's bat, and we have Adley's bat, and Mountcastle's bat, and you know the list goes on. Like, I'm not going to cover other teams' players when the Orioles have the 3rd best record in all of baseball, but I do love Bryce Harper.
Oh yeah.
Randall says the watching pitches go by and not protect the bat has to stop. Yeah, I mean that was a really big topic of conversation this entire show is not taking the bat off the shoulder in critical situations. I get it. Sometimes you get frozen. In Adley's case, it didn't look like he was. In Adley's, O'Hearn's, and Cowser's case, I don't think any of them were frozen. I think they thought they were balls, and they just didn't swing, and they're too close to take.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, you know, we talked about how you have to adjust to the umpire throughout the game. They didn't seem to really do that. Look, it's tough, but we've seen guys get frozen all the time. You want to be better. You want better results, of course, but going to try not to lose too much sleep over it.
Yeah, and losses happen. You know, the Orioles come back out and they win today. You have to feel, you know, excited. Like would you like to sweep the Phillies? Absolutely. But would you also want to have that excitement of where we've each won a game in a series and we go into like who's going to win the series tomorrow with 2 of the best pitchers in baseball on the mound? Like I'm here for that. Like I'm totally here for that. I need it, you know. Randall says, can't wait for Mayo to come up with the big bat. I'm worried about Bradish and elbow soreness. Santander and Hayes screwed up. It's hard to say Santander screwed up. Did he have a shot at that home run ball? Maybe. You know, I depth perception being what it is, I can't really tell how close to the wall he was. It did look like he gave up on it, but I can totally see your point, Ryan, where he probably thought it was going to bounce off the top of the wall and he was trying to play the carom, which is totally understandable. But you can't say a guy that hit the game-tying home run in the bottom of the 8th and then threw out the game-winning run in the top of the 10th. It is screwed up. Like, I thought, and he had another hit on top of that. Santander had a great game last night.
Yeah. And to your point about Hayes, that you mentioned this earlier, you know, maybe, you know, what happens if Cowser's out there, right? You have 100% confidence that he's going to catch that ball. I think if the roles are switched there and it's Cowser out there who misplays it and doesn't catch it, I think we're saying the same thing about if Austin Hayes was out there.
Maybe.
I think he makes that catch 100 times out of 100. That's just a tough one, man. It was a long way to go. I'm not going to fault Hayes. Yes, he could have caught it. He'll be the first to tell you that. But, you know, it was a well hit ball on a poorly located pitch, but to a really good hitter. That's baseball, man. It's baseball. It happens.
What are your thoughts on Austin Hayes hitting 161 against right-handed pitching and being allowed to hit in the bottom of the 11th?
I don't love it. Of course, you've got Mateo and McCann right behind him. Mateo, not great. I don't know the numbers, but I know Mateo and McCann, you know, not great hitters overall. Mateo's having a decent season, but he's been much better against lefties. So you're going to pinch hit for 2 out of those 3 guys, which they did. I'm fine with Hayes being the guy who gets the AB because
he's the only one who put the ball in play.
Yeah, I mean he's been hot lately. I'm fine with it. I think if you had other options and maybe a couple better bats behind him, then yes, you absolutely pinch hit for him there. But I was fine with how that played out.
I get
fine with the results, but the managing of it, I was okay with.
When Hayes came up to bat, I thought you have Kowser and Stowers on the bench. And then I looked at his splits and I'm like, he's hitting 161 against righties. Why is he batting? And then he flew out. And yeah, he got Cedric over to third base, but you need base runners. Like Cedric's run matters, but because he's got to score for you to get the other run to score also. But like you need to score 2 runs that inning. Like I don't need a productive out. I need a base hit. I need a walk. Like I need somebody getting on base here. But then when Kowser and Stowers strike out, it's like, all right, 6 of one, half dozen the other. At least he put the ball in play, you know? Yeah. Randall says, O should pass on Crochet and make a trade with Seattle for Gilbert and bring stability back. Look, the Orioles don't have an opportunity to pass on Crochet because the White Sox are not trading him. I don't know why everybody thinks that the White Sox are going to trade Garrett Crochet. It's not going to happen. They are going to go into rebuild mode. And what better player to rebuild around than a power-throwing starting pitcher like Garrett Crochet, who's under team control for, 5 more seasons? They're not trading him. It's not going to happen. The Orioles would have to offer up probably Kobe Mayo and Jackson Holliday for them to even consider it. Where is this idea that the Orioles are even going to have the opportunity to pass on Crochet?
I don't know, man. Look, he's having a heck of a year. He's a really good player on a really bad team, and I think that's.
I know that's why, but
yeah. No. I'm saying I think as a whole, and this isn't Randall's fault by any stretch. It's the media portraying and fans looking at a good player on a bad team, and it's like, oh, that's a guy that is on the trade market. That's not necessarily how it works. You have to look at team control. You have to look at production. You have to look at all these different factors. Contention window. And maybe the White Sox are able to unload some guys and be competitive in a couple years. We don't know that, but if that is the case, you want Garrett Crochet at the top of your rotation. So I agree with you. I don't think he gets traded, but we'll see.
And again, I'm not trying to be a jerk to anybody when I say it that sternly. I keep seeing Crochet's name from fans, and it's like you guys have to look like you said. There's more to it than just a good player on a bad team. Crochet is not going anywhere. Somebody's gonna have to give up way too much to get him, and I don't think that the White Sox are even entertaining it. To be fair.
Yeah.
Randall wants to know, what would a Verlander trade look like? I think cash and a low M prospect. Probably more than cash. I mean, maybe Hudson Haskin, who's been hitting the ball pretty well since he came off the IL. Maybe some kind of prospect who's got a decent ceiling like a Hudson Haskin, but like can't stay on the field. You're gonna have to give up probably a couple of prospects, but this is a type of trade. I don't know what it's going to look like. If I did, I'd be a GM somewhere. But this is the type of trade that you can see Mike Elias making, where it's like he didn't really give up much to get Justin Verlander. He got Seth Johnson for Trey Mancini, Seth Johnson and Chase McDermott for Trey Mancini, and he got Cade Povich and Yennier Cano for Jorge Lopez. Like Mike Elias isn't going to get fleeced in a trade. And he's not going to, like I said earlier, nuke the farm system because of an injury. I think he could get Verlander for a low cost. I don't think as low as cash and a low end prospect, but who the hell knows?
Yeah, I don't think you're giving up a top 10 guy for Verlander. But yeah, like you said, if we knew the answer to that, we'd have a much better feel for it. But I don't know. They're going to go out and get some kind of starting pitcher. If it's a Verlander or a Luzardo, I don't know. But it's going to be interesting. And I know I've said this before, but it's going to be interesting to see how it shapes up over the next couple of weeks.
For sure. It's going to be pretty exciting as they head closer and closer towards that deadline. Don C, great stream, guys. I think our guys are fine. I honestly can't wait for Colby Mayo to get a shot after getting healthy. Glad we drew about the farm clubs and not free agency to right the ship. I, for one, can't wait to see Mayo get up here. Let's keep in mind that he's tearing the cover off the ball at high A Aberdeen, which is he should be. But he was also tearing the cover off the ball when he got hurt at AAA. Get him back to Norfolk. Let's see how he does coming back to the air, facing tougher competition for a few weeks. But I would love to see Colby Mayo get into this lineup and do some damage down the stretch for this team. I think that could be a big thing that pushes the Orioles over the top moving forward.
Yeah, he could be huge. We talked about the need for a middle-of-the-order bat, and Colby Mayo very well might be that guy. Rib injury set him back a couple weeks, but, he's back. He looks good, and I don't think it's long before we see him.
Yeah, I agree. This is a comment where I was like, oh, this is just – and I love you, man. I don't like this comment. Why does Paul hate Kowser? I do not hate Colton Cowser. People seem to think that I hate Colton Cowser because he was struggling, and I called out the fact that he was struggling, and I called out the fact that I don't believe that he should have a section named. I get that his name is Cowser, and there's cow in his name, and he's called the Milkman, and people moo, and Jason Benowitz loves him, and I understand that, and I like Colton Cowser. I had a conversation with a friend the other night. Like, I think he's going to be a really good player. Right now, I don't think he's a really good player. I think he's a good player. I think that he's a great defender, and I think that he hits the ball really hard when he makes contact. He strikes out way too much. The moment is bigger than him, way more than it isn't in situations. That 2-run homer the other night was awesome. That 2-run homer they hit the other night after Keegan Aiken gave up the game-tying home run, that was awesome. But I think more often than not, the moment's bigger than him in clutch situations. I do not hate Colton Cowser, and just because I said that other players are more deserving of a section than he was at the moment, that wasn't hatred. That's me stating facts, that there are players who have played more consistently and better than him for longer that have not had the same luxuries of having a section named after him. Do not hate Colton Cowser. I really, really like Colton Cowser, and I feel confident more often than not when he comes to the plate. So I want to just squash the idea that I hate Colton Cowser, because I do not. I don't hate. There are very few players on this team, on any Orioles team all time, that I've hated. I can tell you off the top of my head, Garrett Atkins, number 1 by a wide margin, Terry Matthews, RIP, and Ryan McKenna. And I don't hate them as people. I hate them as players. That's it. But anyway, moving on, going off on a tangent about how much I actually really like Colton Cowser. Let me see. That's really, all the other comments are just guys kind of talking back and forth to each other. Do you have any comments that you want to put up on here, Ryan?
Not really. I actually got to get rolling here in a few. We have an
too.
appointment at noon, so.
Yeah, I've got an open house. I gotta run out too. But great show. Great to have you back, Ryan. Thank you to all of our listeners, fans, and viewers. We certainly appreciate you. Without you, we absolutely do not have a show. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Without paying the bills, we don't have a show either. And thank you again to Ryan for coming back and doing another great show with us, and to Zach and Dylan for filling in while Ryan was off doing, wedding stuff and getting his life on that marriage highway. So until next week, thanks for tuning in.